So what is the proper human diet? Let's have a talk about why the carnivore diet works. Every animal has a proper diet. If you try to feed your rabbit ground beef, it's probably going to refuse it. And if you force feed it, it's probably not going to stay very healthy for very long, and it's probably going to get sick and die. And if you try to feed your cat on carrots and spinach and rhubarb, it's probably going to be pretty sick and not live very long either. So humans for over 2 million years were hunters and ate predominantly meat and fat. We've only eaten a lot of plants and started farming in the last 10,000 years. So that's like a snippet of time when you look at the amount of time that we were out there with spears hunting animals. Humans have obviously eaten some plant material most of the time. I mean, if the hunting was bad and they needed to, then they would obviously have eaten berries and tubers and that sort of thing. And if there was anything sweet to be had, so any kind of sweet fruits that were growing in the area or honey, humans obviously are going to eat that. That's why we have sweet taste buds in our mouths. But meat and fat was the basis of the human diet for over 2 million years. So it is obviously going to be the diet that suits our bodies. Now, there's also the issue with plants around toxins. So plants, the only way that they can defend themselves is to create toxins. They can't run away, and so they've got to try and deter things from eating them. And so they create toxins in their leaves and their stems. Now, most plants on the planet are poisonous. If you're lost in the bush somewhere, you can't just go and eat any plants because there's a really good chance that they'll kill you. The plants that we eat commonly, although they don't kill us immediately, some can if they're not prepared properly, but most don't and can't, but they still contain plant toxins. And so these are usually metabolites that are produced so the plants can defend themselves against various threats. So the threats might be bacteria, fungi, insects, and predators like us or like animals, and they can be species specific, and they can give the plants its particular characteristics, so its colours and flavours, etc. Now, there's some animals have adapted to eat certain plants, and they can handle those toxins, where if other animals try to eat those same plants, it will kill them. An example is koalas in Australia that eat eucalyptus leaves. So they survive really well on eucalyptus leaves, but they're basically the only animals that do. So there are many different types of plant toxins, but this is just a few. So you've got lectins that are really common in beans and legumes. Kidney beans have the highest concentration, and in fact only 4 or 5 raw kidney beans can make you seriously ill and cause serious digestive upsets. Grains contain phytates. Now, phytates are anti-nutrients, and so they will actually bind to minerals such as magnesium and calcium and make them unavailable in your body. There's also cyanogenic glycosides. So this is cyanide in foods such as bamboo shoots, apricot seeds, flaxseed, and cassava. So cassava is what we know, probably the most common things that we know with cassava are tapioca starch and sago, and so they're commonly used in a lot of like gluten-free products and processed foods, that sort of thing. And then also like potatoes contain glycoalkaloids, and the glycoalkaloids increase when potatoes are green or sprouting. So that's why you should never eat green potatoes or sprouting potatoes because they can be quite poisonous. Zucchini can contain Curcubitacins, I think that's how you pronounce it. So this is fairly rare. It's more common apparently in wild zucchini, but it can be in commercial products as well, and it's caused by fungus. And then, of course, there's oxalates, and oxalates are probably the most insidious of all the plant toxins, because when you're consuming too many of those, they can build up in your body over years and cause all sorts of aches, pains, and health issues. Oxalate is really common in foods like almonds, sweet potato, chocolate. It's really high amounts in spinach, silver beet or chard. It's also in raspberries and blackberries and all sorts of foods. And what it does is there's different types of oxalate. It's acidic and it binds to calcium in particular, but it also binds to magnesium and other minerals. And it will creates kidney stones. So calcium oxalate is the most common form of kidney stone. But it can also create crystals in your joints and in tissues that can cause pain, and it can create crystals in your breasts, which it's associated with breast cancer. Now, I've got a video on that. I realized that was a thing just a few months back when I had something weird happen with oxalate dumping. I will link that to that video below this one if you want to go and have a look at that, because this is something that's really not talked about and needs to be, because there's quite a lot of research that shows that oxalates are well associated with breast cancer and potentially other cancers as well. Because if you think about it, if you've got a crystal in the tissue and it's irritating, then it's going to cause inflammation and problems in there. So as I said, a lot of plant toxins are anti-nutrients, so oxalate and phytate are examples of those that bind minerals. They bind the minerals that are in the foods that you're eating that contains the anti-nutrients, so the oxalate or phytates, but it also binds the minerals in the other foods that you're eating at the same time. So this contributes to mineral deficiencies such as magnesium and calcium, and is actually a real problem. Now, there's also questions around fibre. So we've all been kind of told that fibre is essential for bowel health and gut health and everything else. But there are many thousands of carnivores around the world who are proving that you don't need fibre to poop. And in fact, often your digestive system is healthier without fibre. In fact, there are diets that are prescribed for people with gut and bowel issues that basically remove almost fibre from their diet to allow their digestive systems to heal. So fibre, when you've got an inflamed digestive system, fibre is like rubbing raw skin with steel wool, basically. So if you're eating a high fibre diet and your digestive system's already inflamed, it's just going to keep irritating it and make it worse. So you're better off without it, at least for a period of time until you manage to get your digestive system to heal. So carbohydrates also are the cause of insulin issues. Certain carbs are obviously worse for that. They cause big spikes in blood sugar. So these are things like starches, like flours and things like that, and sugars, processed sugar and stuff will cause those spikes, and too much of that causes insulin resistance. Now, many of us, adults and these days children as well, sadly, are basically metabolically broken, and that means that our cells are insulin resistant whether we realize that or not. Our mitochondria are not functioning properly, so the mitochondria are the energy factories in our cells, and so often because of that and their nutritional deficiencies, our organs are struggling. That allows toxins and waste to accumulate. And when our bodies are metabolically broken, it's hard to undo and repair the damage that's done when there's not enough nutrition in the body, and we're still putting some of the stuff in that caused the problem in the first place. So this is a real problem. It's a really common problem, and I know that there are people that have found even when they go onto a keto diet, if they've got diabetes or whatever, their diabetes improves. But sometimes it's not until they go onto a carnivore diet that it actually resolves and they get off all their medication. And that's because the carnivore diet just takes it that step further. Another thing that I think is going on with a lot of people, even if they don't realize it, is SIBO. So SIBO I've been looking into just recently. I've kind of realized that I think it's been an issue for me probably most of my adult life. And what SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So we have our large intestine, which is our colon or large bowel, and it is supposed to have this huge diversity of bacteria in there, and that's fine. The small intestine is 24 feet long. It's supposed to have certain bacteria in there, but not a lot of the bacteria that are in the large intestine. Now, what happens with SIBO is that sometimes some of those bacteria that are from the large intestine get up into the small intestine and start multiplying in there. And sometimes bacteria from foods that have been consumed end up in the small intestine as well. Now, this isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen. And so then we end up with 30 feet of trillions of bacteria just constantly multiplying. Those bacteria, their lifespans are anything between a few minutes and a few hours. And so when they're dying, they create endotoxins, which then pass through the wall of the small intestine into the bloodstream. Now, the wall of the large intestine is nowhere near as permeable as the small intestine. The small intestine is supposed to have things go through it because that's where the nutrients from our foods pass through into the bloodstream. So it is naturally more permeable, and then when that area gets unhealthy and inflamed, we can end up with leaky gut, which lets more food through. And so this can become a real problem. Carbohydrates feed the bacteria that causes SIBO. So one of the first things with SIBO that most people are told to do is to remove most carbohydrates from their diet and stop feeding those bacteria for at least for a period of time. So Dr. William Davis, I've been listening to a lot of his work and I'm waiting on his book arriving, which I'll link to below this in the show notes. He estimates that over 50% of people in Western countries have SIBO. And I suspect that he's probably right. When you look at the symptoms of SIBO, I'm going to do a video about that shortly. I think that a lot of people are suffering with SIBO, and so I think that that's one of the reasons why carnivore works so well for a lot of people as well, is because when they go into carnivore, they're getting rid of all or most carbohydrates out of their diet, and they stop feeding those bacteria that are causing problems, because not everybody with SIBO has gut issues. And so they might not even know that they've got anything going on in their digestive system. So the other thing, because of all of this, you know, there's especially in the Western countries, there is a general toxicity and lack of health in people's bodies. We live in a world that's challenging for our bodies. It's not the world that our ancestors lived in. There is so much that's different today, but in particular, what we put in and on our bodies is causing a lot of problems. Most people's bodies are toxic, and they're damaged from processed foods, which include, you know, sugars and seed oils and chemical additives. This is stuff that's not food. It's not what we're designed to eat. But there are companies that make these things that made them taste great. They've made them addictive, and they're cheap, or some are, and so the grocery shops and supermarkets are full of them. And if you go into the supermarket, that's mostly what's in there. There's all sorts of processed foods and bright packaging and made to taste great. And so that's what people consume as huge parts of their diet. The other things that are contributing to general lack of health with people, pharmaceutical drugs. So pharmaceutical drugs are not anything that not remotely natural products. They all cause deteriorating health. They do not improve health ever. They create an effect that might reduce symptoms, and they might be needed if you're in an acute position where your life is in danger or whatever. But to take pharmaceutical drugs long term is not ideal, because they are always causing problems in your body. There's also problems with alcohol and recreational drugs. They're really common as well. And chemicals generally, there's chemicals everywhere, exposed to so many. They're in the food, as I've already mentioned, but they're in the air and the water, personal care products, you know, skincare, shampoo, cleaning products, you know, the fragrances that are in things, in people's deodorants. I mean, we're exposed. I don't use anything with synthetic fragrances, but I'm exposed to them on clients that I work on every day during the week, because they're wearing deodorants and perfumes, and they're using you know, fabric softeners and detergents to wash their clothing that have really strong fragrances, and so I'm being exposed to them through their use, you know. So it's really hard to get away from that stuff these days. There's also outgassing from furniture and textiles and clothing fabrics and like new vehicles. You know, if you get into a new vehicle that's been sitting in the sun, the smell from the fabrics and the plastics is not just a smell, it's chemicals that are off-gassing from the interior of the car and entering your body through your lungs and through your skin and having an effect on your body. It's the same with clothing. You know, sometimes these days you'll buy clothing and it really smells, it has a strong smell, and it's because they're using like fire retardants and things like that that are quite toxic, that are off-gassing and getting into our bodies. And also workplace exposure to chemicals. Depending on your job, you can be required to use different chemicals for your job, or you know, if you're working in industries that are manufacturing products, you can be exposed to all sorts of things there. So the carnivore diet, I think the reason that it works is not just that it's our proper human diet, but it also because it provides a clean diet and it provides superior nutrition to plants. So there are no anti-nutrients to remove the nutrients that you're eating, and the nutrition in animal products is what our bodies need, and it's superior nutrition to plants. There are nutrients that you cannot get in a plant-based diet, in a vegan diet, but you can get everything you need from an animal-based diet. So the nutrition meets our body's needs, and that allows our bodies to kind of clean up and heal. And if you're using fasting as well, then that's even better. And that's one of the things with the carnivore diet is it's so satiating that most people gravitate towards, you know, 1 or 2 meals a day. And if they decide to do longer fasting, it makes it easier, because especially once your body gets into the swing of using fat as fuel, you can fast for, you know, days and you really don't experience any hunger. So it's a different way of eating, and it's a much more nutritious and satiating way of eating. So to round it up, the carnivore diet works because it is the proper human diet. It has superior nutrition, which equals better function in your body. It lowers blood glucose levels. It contains less chemicals and toxins, and that's why it works. So if you have any comments or questions, please fire away below. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy the carnivore diet too, but I hope you enjoy this video. And if you do, make sure to subscribe and like. And I thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you again another day. Goodbye for now.